Okay, guys, part two. We are talking to Jubilee, and she's a very unique and special lady who's been on my channel recently. As I'm recovering here from a very serious hunger strike, it's like the universe sent her right when things are getting serious because she knows what it feels like to be destroyed by the medical system and all these systems that don't care and aren't really human centric. Look at my hair, look what's going on. I need to comb it. So Jubilee, we're going to continue with your 31 points that you made about my recordings. So let's go through around 320. Oh, no. That's too far. So, all right, guys. We're going to talk about reciprocation. And I like being very reciprocal because reciprocation means that you're not a narcissist. And you're also wise because wisdom has to do with proportionality. Rationality, if you think about it, has ratio in it. Ratios are a direct relationship between two quantities, okay? And those quantities change in proportion to each other. So, or they can anyway, if they keep the ratio the same. So in justice, in court systems, you want to make sure that the remedy is proportional to the damages. Meaning that however bad you were violated, you want to get a proportional remedy. Like if somebody killed somebody that you know and you got a cracker, doesn't seem proportional. It seems like a mockery. Same with doing it the other way around though. Overcompensating would drain resources for frivolous activities. Okay, so when it comes to my partnerships, and I recommend this for you too, game theory comes in handy here. So does wise love. So with you, Jubilee, you're saying something very concerning to me, who believes in this concept of dialectical wisdom or this proportionality and this rationality. And that's that everybody's got to work for you. And the reciprocity is just trust me, is what you're saying. I've been through contract law before. I've had $10,000 or I've had like $20,000, $50,000 deals go bad. Particularly in patent law. Not good. So I have learned some painful lessons that whenever somebody says, trust me, I don't trust them. It's just that simple. Anybody who does not want to give you a justification is not being rational. They're not giving a reason for the proportions of what they're doing or why they're even doing it. So if you want to protect yourself with wise love and stay loving, there's one strategy in game theory that works much better than all the others over time. And it's called tit for tat. And we use something called tit for tat or sublated tit for tat, which is even better. So what happens, Jubilee, is when somebody's not reciprocating, right? Here's how it actually works. There's actually 4 different types of strategies usually. There's the one where you always cooperate. You always just give. You're the giver. No matter whether they treat you good or bad, you're the give. Mothers really don't like mothers fall into this and they get very bitter and resentful because their children eventually get habituated into never reciprocating and they just become a drain. Like women, like mothers are humans. They need to be eventually restored too. So, and because of the patriarchy, it's really bad. And that's where I agree with some of your the comments about patriarchy is it is actually pretty bad. I watched some of my actual male friends who didn't have any sisters or their mother was bulldozed or, I know one woman who had 5 sons with her husband. 5 sons, no daughters. Ouch. You love your kids, but it's a weird dynamic. And you go into those families, it's like they don't understand women. And then the mother doesn't feel like she can speak up about her needs. I was raised with women. My mother even divorced my first dad. So it was like just me, my 2 sisters, my 2 first sisters, and my mom, and my grandmother, and then my godmothers. Like it was a lot of female energy. And I got it like young in the brain. So my fundamental how I formulate myself, my identity is very masculine, feminine, everything in between and beyond. I think it was a very important stage for me. And my mother was very good as a single mother, being masculine too. She's very analytically inclined as well, but she's also an empath. So I got, exposed to tons of energies, and it made things very dialectical and very contradictory. I started noticing this fabric of reality that it would seem to contradict itself. But I couldn't grasp how it was all hanging together. Like I couldn't, like this yin yang concept, dualism, all this. How do you make this sign in dualism with this edge in the wall, or my beard, or like how do you make this little dot into a like how do you make that all into opposites? It doesn't make any sense. Now I know how, with universal logic. There's an order to how these things are opposing each other, and they do it on multiple things are rotating at multiple levels. So how the orientations are you need to know how to recognize what position they're in notionally. It's called the notion, and syllogistically, connecting notions to each other. But anyway, this is all about reciprocity. So the first strategy is cooperate all the time. You get drained, and it's not the best strategy. You don't win. You actually don't win. You actually end up losing a lot. Then there's the opposite strategy, which is draconian, hammer, like take, steal from them. You just keep taking. And if they put up a wall, you just keep destroying each other. And it's called a downward spiral. You just spiral downwards and you destroy each other. That also doesn't win most of the time. You would think it might, but it doesn't. The one that wins all the time is this tit for tat, where you always start off cooperative. You always start off inviting in reciprocity and giving them the benefit of the doubt that they will reciprocate. Why is that important? It's because you're seeding trust. You're seeding trust right away so that you don't end up in that downward spiral, like in the second strategy. You begin with hope, you begin with openness, and if they're open and they work out, then the reciprocity starts working right away. You start gaining ground. But if the other person changes and they stop reciprocating, they start siphoning in one direction, you need to have a conversation about why that happens. Why is it happening? It's because they probably feel entitled to something, or the proportions are off. The valuations are off. Okay? So what you do in that particular case is you don't just keep giving. You're not a fool. You're about wise love, not blind love. So what you do is, while they're acting like a jerk, you put up a boundary and you defend yourself and you stop giving. You stop giving to the jerk. That's simple. But guess what? Here's the magic sauce. The minute that they decide to reciprocate and balance again, you open back up and you give. Because if you stay resentful, then you end up in that downward strategy. And you don't want to go there. Okay, so it's the methodology in that you explain the method. There's a lot of talking in that third method of tit for tat. And sublated tit for tat is about explaining that methodology directly so that you're making it very clear that you're willing to return to the good orientation. And this actually wins out almost every single time. It's the best strategy. And that's how it prevents spiritual people from getting drained in a toxic society. Okay, but you're never the initiator of the violence or the lack of reciprocity. You're always reacting to it defensively. Because you don't want to seed the world with that. You're only doing it as a reaction. So, and then eventually other people see that and they gravitate, and then you create an upward spiral. Okay, so you do that. That's what I'm going to do with you, Jubilee. Okay, so this is mathematically proven. This is not an assumption. These guys in the late 1980s or 90s, beginning of 90s, they use those primitive computers to run these simulations and run thousands and thousands. Like I think they ran 100,000 cases, and this tit for tat greatly, like it was a trend every single time. So they discovered something profound. So I know it works, and I know it's spiritually grounded. And it's wise. So you're not reciprocating in the normal way. But you are making videos of my content in a sort of negative light. But you're also saying positive things, which I want to get to here. So when I come onto your channel, I mark it. I'm like, Kate went on her channel, went on her channel, went on her channel. Not coming on my channel, not supporting me, not coming back. So there's 3 things that have been exchanged. And now I'm being told it's never going to change. So I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. I'm willing to give up 3 things, but now you might have missed one of the greatest partners in your life. Because I know how those relationships go, and they don't go how people think they go. And I've seen too many divorces to be fooled into it, or friendships broken, or betrayals. It's just simple dialectics. And what I mean is my mother got divorced 2 times, and then married 3 times. She was with 3 different men. So it was painful. I have 3 dads. You know what I mean? And like a lot of single mothering. Okay, so I want to see some reciprocity before I go on your show again. Even though I'm excited about it, I want to make it explicit. But you did cover one of my videos, like my recordings technically. So I mean, I guess I was getting some exposure, but on my channel, there's no real support for what I'm doing, right? And even though you're claiming to be the Jubilee, I've already seen some massive problems, right? You're not an executor. So we need to get somebody else to help you with that. And your project as the Jubilee is an economic situation. It's not a government in itself. It's a one-off event, unless you do it the way that I'm saying, that I already pointed out. So that's very important, not just for me and Jubilee, but anybody else who's watching this. If you're spiritual, don't be a fool. Those other 2 strategies lose virtually every single time. So don't do them. We need spiritual light workers and divinely in tune people and spirited people to stay strong. Okay, that doesn't mean getting bulldozed by everybody around you who's lost. All right, and you are working with the real Messiah here. So I mean, being pretty graceful. I think you're being pretty graceful too. But I'm not a fool. You don't survive 65-day hunger strikes and all this stuff. You don't survive all that by being blind. It's a tough situation that we're in. We're trying to squeeze water out of a rock, okay? Look at this. We're already at 12 minutes. I'm just on the first point. But you did start to reciprocate towards the end of this recording, towards your recording, Jubilee. You're saying, I don't need to give you content. No. Well, the thing is, I'm already giving you content, right? Because you're responding to the recordings of content, and you're getting dramatics off of it. You're kind of one-upping me all the time and saying, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. What a fool, what a fool, what a fool, what a fool. Not really ever acknowledging a back and forth that's healthy, which is, oh, he was right about that thing. He was right about that thing. Now, most people who are really caught up in their minds will respond to what I just said by saying, well, I'm not going to give you a compliment if there's nothing good that you said. And they literally hardline and say, nothing that you ever say is good. That's when you really have to be careful. Because this starts to turn into gaslighting. And it starts to turn into a very unhealthy dynamic. And that's the moment that you really need to be defending yourself from being bulldozed, but in a loving, compassionate way. And that's very important, okay? So I like to go back and forth, and I'm noticing that you're not really as giving that way, Jubilee. And that might be why your relationship building skills are a little bit weaker than your strategy skills and your influencing skills. So those 2 are very strong. See, that's a compliment right there. I have no problems giving that because I think it's true. But the other 2 are weak, executor and the relationship builder, which are these flow rules that all meetings and organizations need to balance and move forward productively through the 4 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing. So yeah, we are giving you content, right? We're giving you content to one up and improve your channel. You're doing it to the other guy too, the black guy, the gay black guy, and a few others. But we could fight fire with fire, but it might not be worth it. I mean, I'm just doing these recordings because you got to a place where there's something workable here. And it's that, like, one thing that you do to make content here is you'll pick, it's called dialectic. You'll pick something to have tension with, and it creates drama. And ordinary consciousness defaults to that. That's how we start in the finite world. The finite world starts with negative consciousness. That's why it's easy for people to do, usually. And ordinary consciousness drives there. It's harder to do both critique and compliment, this sublation, this canceling and preservation at the same time, and then raising to a higher level, which is what I'm trying to do here. I'm critiquing you, but I'm also saying, hey, I think there's some strengths here, and I think that you have some good ideas, and I think that they'll fit into what I'm doing too, and they can be very complementary and harmonious, so that you don't take on more than you can chew, which would push you out of your flow state. Because in God's government, you don't get paid anymore by your absolute production. If I make more than you, because I'm more able-bodied than you, I don't get paid more. And same with you. If you don't work up to your potential, and we know that your potential is reliably, you don't get paid your full pay. You got to work for it just like everybody else. So it's a great way to balance the capitalist and socialist dynamics, where there's limitations to both, right? A lot of people don't realize in capitalism, there's good news to capitalism. There's good news to socialism. But a lot of people don't realize the downfalls of socialism. Socialism has something called dead weight, that economically you can undermine productivity by drawing resources into people that don't actually have a work ethic that is conducive to the whole. And Ronald Reagan used that exact argument, plus some data about unions, to show that the United States is becoming less competitive. And it was true, which is shocking. I didn't like to hear that news. But it's really put things into perspective now that I understand dialectic. So it's true. You have capitalism, and then the abstract opposite, or the opposite that's on the same level as it, there's levels to opposites, is socialism, not communism. Communism is not the abstract opposite. Communism is the vertical opposite. It's supposed to be the bringing together socialism and communism simultaneously in one harmonious whole. That's not a classic, doesn't have much of classes in it. But you do have differentiation and diversity, which Marx was never against. He was all for consuming many things. In fact, he was about abundance. Okay, we're at 17 minutes, and we've covered 2 points, 3 points. So your videos are very dialectical. You like the dialectic stuff because it's charged and gives you a chance to one up and show that you're better. But it's very easy to kind of go back and say, well, if you get questioned in any sort of way, it's doesn't make you look good, right? And we want to make you look good while also knowing what your limit is. Okay, and same with me, same with anybody else. Okay, so I said, why don't you see how you were criticizing me, making these hunger strikes sound easy? They're hard. Trust me, they're hard. See how easy it is to sit in bed, is what I said to you. You know, you're judging me without actually doing it. What you said in your videos, you're saying I was choosing to disable myself. And then I went on a rant explaining all the stuff I was doing to be productive, and that the disabling wasn't a real disablement in terms of what I dedicated my life towards, which is starting God's government. I don't need to be in peak physical condition to start God's government. I need to make sure that my brain is burning ketones and staying sharp. And it was until 62 days. Okay. And that's okay. I went to the limit, and that inspires people to take action and be dedicated. But I'm also getting like 50 to 100,000 views every 1 to 3 months. So it's like I'm getting some pretty good traction between Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and everything. It adds up. If you do it every day for months, every day, it works. And I think you know that. Yeah, okay, so now we're at 3:23 or 3:08:23 on your video, on that stream that you made. 3 hours in, 8 minutes, 23 seconds. And your daughter hands you some water in a bottle. So it seems like your daughter's real. And that's all it takes. You know, you could fake it now, right? If you knew what people are looking for, but I didn't prime you. It was a natural thing. And I was like, okay, there's a very high chance that that's a real person handing you a water bottle, not a robot or somebody you're using to fake it or putting a desk there and making it look like it's setting it all up. There was no setup. So it's very convincing for me, even though you could fake it, because it was so natural, it would be hard to predict it, you know? So that worked once. I don't think it'll work again for other people because now you can game it, right? So that's all it takes. Of course, it'd be better to see more reliable, but your daughter's really not that important right now. The reason why she was important in terms of like what you're trying to do with your life is it lends credibility to that you're a stable mother, and that you're not delusional, that you're not hallucinating your daughter, which would be very concerning, right? But I do not think that's the case now. All right. Okay. So moving on. Saying that I was being very successful. I made that claim in my recordings, and you came back to say, yeah, that's because they're getting paid. But you have to realize I'm a white guy, right? My first blessings, no black people want to do them. Nobody wanted to do them in Africa. Nobody wanted to do them really in Pakistan, especially women, unless I paid them like $50 a blessing, which I did. To get my very first blessing, I had to pay some Nigerian guy $50 because my hunger strike was only 3 days. What was it? I needed one blessing for the first meal, which only took me like 2 days because I got my one friend to do it. Then I needed 2 blessings. I got my one friend to do it, and then we had to find somebody else, my other friend, to do it. And then the third blessing, I think, was where it got dicey because the first 2 wanted to do it, and my other friends were like, I don't know. So I had to go outside my friend network and go to like Nigeria and Kenya and Pakistan and like Nepal and India and all these places. And I said, I need somebody to make this special kind of blessing. Are you willing to do this? And there was a lot of resistance because it was only like 3 days I was only on like 3 or 4 days of hunger. It's not really inspiring, right? So the guy's like, am I being gypped right now? He's like, I'll do it for $50, which is astronomically rapist, like economically. That's like $50, like $2 an hour is good pay in that country. So $50 is like 25 hours at good pay and 50 hours at low skilled labor, which is like a week's worth of pay at 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day. Right. And so I wasn't very happy about that, but I was what was it? I was getting kind of desperate because I didn't want to go too long. I didn't want to break this 3-day pattern that I had going in the beginning. So anyway, that's where we started. Now where we're at is we're making 3,650 some blessings. Not for $50 a blessing, but for 0.0 like 3 cents a blessing. And we had 117 people, and not just 3. So you can see that we're clearly growing and we're reducing the costs. And the tasks are harder because now we're doing these like meetings. So you have to do more tasks. The beginning ones were just videos of people making learning the core, which we might return back to, but it just goes to show that some of them were paid, but some of them did blessings for free. Like one person came and did a bunch of blessings for free that saved my life one time. And even this guy, Sahan, went and organized all these people and wasn't paid for it. And then for my birthday, all those people did it because my friends paid for the meal, the vegan meal. But there was a lot of people that actually did blessings for free and gave me money too, like my cousin. I don't know if I'll say. She donated some funds and she came and did the blessings for free. So that was wonderful. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but we actually had 85 people show up. We had 85 people, 90 some people confirmed, and 60 some people that came to our last meeting. And didn't want to get paid with money. They wanted to do this gift exchange where they wouldn't get compensation from us, but we would match them with other people in the system and do an exchange. So that was pretty great. We had more people wanting to get the gift exchange than us pay them. So we're not paying anything except for them. We're getting them matched up, and that's their goods and services, just naturally exchanging. So that's the next level. That's how we're going to get 324 people potentially for free, or getting most of them, like 1.5 times, over half, being this gift exchange, and then the others that we might have to top up, we might have to pay them maybe $1 an hour. We're going to try and reduce that because it's $2 an hour is good like labor. It's like skill, and they're not trained. They can do some of these things without being trained for hundreds, dozens, or a day of training, or whatever. Okay. And a lot of white people can't get that help anyway. So there's a lot of resentment, and there's a lot of racism, or you'll get exploited like I was in the beginning. And I knew that was going to happen until the longer hunger strikes. Then when the longer hunger strikes started happening, people start getting inspired because like, wow, this guy's like hungrier than I am. He's like the only white guy in the world from the West that's hungrier than an African who's in poverty. It actually has a profound effect, and it worked with unionizing too. When I was unionizing the Uber Eats drivers during the pandemic, they were being horribly exploited by AI, and that's because a lot of them are immigrants or migrants that are being taken advantage of. They can't really get out of this job easily, so they stay in this job, and they just build distrust with this company. So when they see the white guy come into the parking lot and say, "Hey, we're going to unionize you. Do you want to help?" They're immediately skeptical. But then when they look you up, or they understand that you're living in your car for like 3 months to do this, it makes a big difference. They said I did 10 years of unionizing work in 8 months by doing this intense stuff, and then they look me up and they see that I've been doing Make Poverty History for people in Canada, but also all around the world, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, all over the world. Okay, so it makes a big difference because white people are said to be bad. And we're lucky to be in Canada because as white people, we have an advantage because we weren't like, we're nice peacekeeping types, multicultural. Okay, so that's what I want to say about that. You brought up Brian Rose scamming money from me. You talked about Jordan Hall. But the reality is I'm a risk for Brian Rose, and Brian Rose is a risk for me. So we're doing it smart. We're talking it out, and we're making negotiations. And we're talking about the problems and how to solve them together. So he's not scamming money out of me. He's being careful. And I'm technically getting in on a world-class opportunity. It is world-class. Like, it's a very rare thing. And if we get an episode with his help, that's a lot of value. So here's where you got a little bit more. Oh, here, you talked about how hunger strikes were blackmail. They were terrible. Well, is all protesting blackmail then? Like walking down this, like 100,000 people walking down the street demanding from their government that we need climate policies to save the world. Is that blackmailing the government? Right? They could be at their jobs. They could be doing a whole bunch of things. They're losing. There's damages. Is that terrible? Or is, going on a hunger strike, but also like camping out in a quad? Or like there's tons of ways to protest. But a hunger strike is a powerful one where you need to understand that it is not blackmail. It is fighting for your rights against somebody who could be oppressing you, that you don't want to be violent with them. And that's why the Irish legalized them, that you could sleep on somebody's doorstep and starve there to protect your honor. if you feel they've wronged you. And it was accepted. And actually, you need to know this too. Back in 1920, when they had the 94-day hunger strike and all this intense stuff, they cracked down on those protesters. They cracked down so hardcore, and they said, "You're gonna kill yourself. It's like your responsibility. Like, you want to disable yourself. You want to kill yourself. That's your free choice, and we're gonna let you die." And they calculated it as a political war game with these prisoners. By 1970, like 50 years later, the medical consensus was not the medical consensus, and the human rights consensus and the medical ethics consensus was that was not a proper position. And Britain and Ireland, they all got rid of those draconian policies, and most people around the world. Now they operate by medical ethics. They're supposed to try and save your life, but they're supposed to respect your DNR, do not resuscitate, and your wishes while you're competent. So once you become comatose or incompetent, they can't override your will, your advanced directive. So there is a lot of history behind hunger strikes, lots, and these are mild. What I'm doing is mild compared to what Oriental culture and Indians did. In Asia, in China, these monks would go hardcore. They would mummify themselves. It's a real thing. Or in Japan, I think it was. They mummify themselves. For years, for like 3,000 days, they'll just start phasing out solid food, and then they'll start eating just pine needles and bark, and they start to mummify themselves, and then drinking this sap tea that actually is a poison that starts to like coat your organs, and then you die sitting in the lotus position. I thought this was fake. It's real. You can literally go and see these bodies. It's not 100% real because the students had to help mummify them, but the fact that they did that is real. Jains, which are, they don't want to hurt anything, not even plants, they can go on spiritual hunger strikes to the death for fun. Not as protest, not as anger, not as escapism. As a spiritual activity, they're allowed to hunger strike to death just because they might have a terminal illness, or they might be in a calamity, but they can't do it as escapism. They have to do it in a spiritually good mood, which is hard to do when you have a terminal illness, but they somehow worked it out. The higher courts in India tried to ban it, and it caused a massive uprising of Jains all over India. And they eventually won. And they won under the Supreme Court of India's decision that their Section 25 had to do with religious rights, and that was under the religious rights, and they overturned the decision. It is extremely serious, these practices. They have thousands of years of history, and you are coming and trampling all over that with entitlement. And I think that you are not entitled to that. In fact, you're just doing white colonialism all over again. So there's a certain level where if it's mental illness, they can detect it just like anybody else. But if somebody's conscious and lucid and decides this as a spiritual activity or as a protest, they're legally allowed to do that. And they've tried other modes in the past, like your attitude has been determined as unhealthy and psychologically abusive. So stop it. It's my body. I'm not disabling myself meaninglessly. These are highly targeted, legal activities that are also spiritual purifications. But we are in a mega crisis worldwide where experts are telling us that we have a 70% chance to 95% chance of AIs destroying and killing us and causing a species-wide extinction. Our entire species wiped out with shockingly high odds. We are not in a rational world. You think that I'm being coercive with these hunger strikes. I am in a world with a bunch of people that are flying off a cliff by choice. They know the facts, they know the data, they know the people are saying we are in a tragic situation. And here's the data. Some of them don't even want to look at it. They put their heads in the ground. Don't be one of those people. Okay? I am being coerced by normalcy. the normal way of life, go get a job, go do all these things, don't do protests without food. All that stuff is factored into a government's handling of protests. That if you do an email, it counts as like almost nothing. If you send a letter, that counts as like 50 emails because it's harder to do. If you go on a protest and you sit in a tent and you camp outside of the parliament building, that's even harder to do. It's taken more seriously. If you're on a hunger strike inside of your tent, that's even more serious. And if you're on a hunger strike to the death and you're somebody that has leadership position, that's even more serious. That's why they work. Okay? And if you end up dying, it still starts movements, that kind of stuff. That's just the history of hunger strikes. So you're wrong. And every time you speak that way, you act in an entitled way, like the governments do that are suppressing us. So you're actually playing into their hands because you have no other ways to protest. Unless you go violently. But if you go violently, the state likes that because then they can crush you and then have an excuse to say why they crushed you. Oh, they're being violent. They want to hurt us. They make you look like the bad guy. There's no way out. The only way to go is hunger strikes. I thought about it. Lots. So hopefully that makes more sense to you. We're already at 36 minutes. I might have to do another third thing about it. Basically, we were talking about raising $100,000, and the positive thing that you said was, why don't we give the money to you and then try and fundraise and say where the money is going to go to the project, not to anybody's pension or whatever, to their paying their bills. It goes towards the collective project, and you said you would be willing to work in that direction. And that's what maybe the next recording will be about. But it takes me an hour to record these because I got to delete space. And I'm going to make some food. It's like 1 a.m. But I'm going to put one more video in just to show you. It's going to be like an hour and a half response. And I probably won't ever do this again unless we're moving on to the actual project. Okay? So I'll pick up on that next time. And by the way, this is around 3 hours and 20 minutes into your video. I am responding to your video about my recordings, right? So if people are wondering, okay, oh, I'm getting responses from my other guy. Okay, so let's leave this here because my phone can only handle about 37 minutes before it fills up. So I'll upload this if anybody's interested in how I deal with people who are really negative in a certain way, like they're just really picking at you and never giving any real compliments or boosts or reciprocity or anything. This is as gentle as you can be, but still being firm and saying, I'll give a little bit here to give it a chance. But if there's no reciprocity, it's like, okay, I'm going to go find people who are rational and then just keep building the movement. And I'm making the method I'm using, I'm making it explicit so people know what I'm doing so they can think rationally with me. It makes sense to have this strategy. All right. Stay blessed. I'm going to upload this and then I'll clear it, have some room, and then we'll do one more after this tonight. And then I'm going to go do the work. I'm actually coding right now at the same time. So I'm being productive in the actual solution, like the platform and all the planning, all this Messiah election tomorrow. All this stuff is still moving forward while I'm talking to other people. But this talking isn't delaying me from doing this work. It's that this work is happening in the background anyway. So, but it's good to try and get people on board and learn the reactions. And then in the future, we can sort of address them quickly. Okay, and that's called sublation. So we'll see you on the next one. Hopefully we can sublate Jubilee. Okay, peace.